Welcome in to the PHNX D-backs show. My name is Jesse Friedman, not joined today by Derek Montilla. In fact, joined by a very special guest here on the show. We have Jack Sommers joining us from inside the Diamondbacks. Jack does an outstanding job covering the Diamondbacks over at Sports Illustrated Inside the Diamondbacks. Jack, thanks for popping in today.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm looking forward to doing this.
This is not the first time that Jack has been on the show. I believe it was sometime last year you joined Derek at Four Peaks, right?
Yes, we did.
One of our remote broadcasts there. And then some of you might have caught, me and Jack did, or at least Jack was on for a portion of an audio-only World Series preview show that we did right before the World Series started out in Texas. So some of you might have been able to hear him there as well. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump into what was a pretty unfortunate weekend for Diamondbacks fans, Jack, in a number of different ways. This guy named Shohei Ohtani now plays for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, D-backs take a bit of a hit here when it comes to competitiveness, but I don't think it's totally a shock, right? I mean, it was a bit of a gut punch, though, seeing that pop up on my Twitter. I got to admit.
It was especially interesting the way that Ohtani made this known. It was not, I guess Jeff Passan sort of broke the news, but he didn't break the news in the way that he normally does. And that Shohei Ohtani actually posted this out on his Instagram story, or not on his Instagram story, just like a regular Instagram post. Yeah, it looked like this. Although I guess what he posted was literally just the Dodgers logo. It sort of looked like he was announcing that he was committing to like a certain university or something. It's kind of like at least what it made me think of. But he wrote a whole lot of words. He said, "To all the fans and everyone involved in the baseball world, I apologize for taking so long to come to a decision. I have decided to choose the Dodgers as my next team." He said a whole lot of other things as well. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that he felt the need to apologize for coming to a decision on, what was it, December 9th? It's like it wasn't early, but in my mind, it wasn't all that late either, right?
I think he was probably a little apologetic because he was catching some heat from some of the national media.
Sure.
Who were maybe a little too butthurt over, not having enough news to report during the winter meetings.
Sure.
So I think he was maybe giving a little deference to that and trying to, repair some of those bridges.
Yeah, everyone had strong opinions over the weekend for sure about a number of different things. But yeah, the deal here, 10 years, $700 million. It's a pretty decent chunk of change. It kind of seemed going into this that $500 million was a guarantee. Seemed like we all knew that it was going to be at least that. I personally, though, Jack, didn't see it going quite this high.
Yeah, the number was shocking. I mean, Of course, as usual, whenever I'm out and about and not available, that's when any big news breaks. That's kind of like a unwritten rule that Jesse's well aware of.
I am well aware.
And I was off going to see my mom, and I pulled into the driveway, and all of a sudden my phone lights up, and I didn't have time to react right away. And when I saw the number, I was in shock. It just, everyone expected $500-600 million, whatever, but 700 was deferred or not deferred. It's a big, huge number that caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned deferred because I don't think any specific details have come out about this just yet, but we do know that a sizable portion of this contract is deferred. I believe it was reported that the majority of it is deferred, which, the Dodgers are still going to pay Shohei Ohtani $700 million, which is a lot of money. But what the deferrals allow them to do is it significantly lessens their competitive balance tax hit. meaning that number is not going to be as high as it otherwise would have been. And it allows the Dodgers to more easily make other additions to the team, which, of course, if you're a Diamondbacks fan, is not the greatest development. That not only do the Dodgers have Ohtani, but the hit that they're taking as a result of that contract isn't as big as you might have expected it to be.
I think, I had a friend ask me about this, and I threw over the inflation calculator to him.
Yeah, there you go.
Took, $1 in 2008 buys you what now you need $1.43.
Wow.
43% difference between just 15 years. So
it's
even
terrifying.
if his deferments run out, to 2040 or 45 or whatever it is, it's going to be 50% less money actually in present day terms.
Right. Although to me, like deferrals, yes, that absolutely does affect the total dollar value of the deal. But at the same time, doesn't a deal just extending out for a number of years also mean that they're getting less money in a sense? Like in a 10-year deal, you're feeling the effects of inflation more than you are in a 5-year deal, for example. So in some ways, and we don't talk about it in the, like if someone signs a 12-year deal, we don't talk about it as, think about all the inflationary hit they're taking. But yeah, that's just sort of me picking at small details. It is a heck of a lot of money, and the Dodgers, are very much going to take advantage of the fact, or at least we expect them to take advantage of the fact that the hit toward baseball doesn't have a cap, but the hit toward the competitive balance tax threshold is significantly less than it otherwise would have been. Per our friend Patrick Lyons over at DNVR Rockies, this is something he tweeted out that stood out to me. Shohei Ohtani hasn't made that much money up to this point in his career, given the way that he came over to the U.S. and it wasn't, a Yamamoto situation where it's the posting system and he can sign for $300 million. He came over as essentially an international free agent, which made that there were just significant limitations in terms of what he could actually get paid at the time. So according to Patrick, Shohei Ohtani will have doubled his career earnings by July 9th of the 2024 season, which it's not bad, Jack. He's going to do pretty well for himself.
Yeah, I think, who knows what he already made in endorsements. I thought I saw a number like $40 million or something like that he's already made. So, at this point in time, it's not about the money for him because he's already guaranteed, generational money. The guy's, by the time he retires with all his endorsements, he's going to be a multi-billionaire. That's the track he was on. So I don't think that really makes a big difference to him. I think it was more about being in the setup and the environment that he wanted, that he felt was best to himself.
So the Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani are a pretty good baseball team. They're not bad. Having Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani in there to, being able to pencil those three guys in your lineup every day is a pretty good place to be. But yeah, when you think about how this affects the Dodgers going into 2024, at least my initial reaction is that they might not necessarily be worlds better than they were in 2023 just because of this move.
Sure.
I think JD Martinez in the DH slot for the Dodgers last year had a really good season, hit 33 home runs, 103 RBI, even though he didn't play for the entire year. And you look at Shohei Ohtani's career numbers offensively compared to what JD Martinez did last year for the Dodgers in the DH slot. There's not necessarily a huge difference there unless Ohtani comes out and has a similar year to what he did in 2023, where he had like a 181 OPS plus or something ridiculous like that. If that happens, even though Ohtani won't pitch next year, that would be a pretty significant step forward for them offensively.
One thing that's been kind of going through my mind is whether or not, I know he can't pitch, but does the elbow injury have any impact on his swing whatsoever?
Right.
The assumption is not, but who knows, right?
Yeah.
What if he has a problem with that? He gears it up and starts swinging a bat like crazy and going full bore, and next thing you know, something snaps in there again. It could happen just from swinging a bat. You don't know.
Yeah, we saw Bryce Harper come back pretty early from, I guess we don't know exactly what surgery Shohei Ohtani got, which is still dumbfounding to me.
Now, do you know what a brace surgery is? I have no idea. Yeah,
well, the internal brace procedure is supposed to expedite the process. That's about all I know. But yeah, have we ever gotten real clarity on what surgery Shohei Ohtani had?
Right. I don't think anybody knows for sure which one it was.
Yeah. So we don't know exactly how it would compare to the surgery that some other top hitters have had. But we saw Bryce Harper come back from Tommy John surgery this past year, and He looked pretty good. He didn't look so great at the beginning, though. It seemed like it took him a little while to figure things out. But yeah, maybe there is some level of impact there, given that Ohtani is going to be coming back from that surgery, and theoretically it shouldn't affect him much offensively. But I agree that it theoretically could. On the pitching side of things, this doesn't help the Dodgers for 2024, right? We don't expect Shohei Ohtani to be able to pitch for them in 2024, and their starting rotation on paper right now is not particularly impressive. If we look at what that looks like, at least right now for 2024, it's not a crazy list, right? You've got Walker Buehler, you've got Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepio, Ryan Yarbrough, and Emmett Sheehan. There's some potential here. Like, I thought Pepio at the end of the season looked pretty good for the Dodgers. Emmett Sheehan's an interesting prospect. Ryan Yarbrough, someone they picked up last year at the trade deadline. But am I crazy, Jack, in saying that the Diamondbacks, as of right now, have a better starting rotation, maybe by a wide margin, than what the Dodgers have?
Operative word, as of right now.
Correct.
I mean, Ohtani himself is only adding 2-3 WAR, whatever a DH,
Sure,
as great as he is, can add. But everybody on that list, from Ryan Pepio on down, you can slide down 2 slots. The Dodgers are going to add at least 2 starting pitchers. And they very well may add 2 starting pitchers that are among the top tier of pitchers available in free agency and trade. They could trade for a top tier pitcher, for example, Cease or Glasnow, and sign a top tier pitcher, maybe even Yamamoto, maybe Snell. I'll be shocked. And again, it's back to the deferments. The word is that the deferments in Ohtani's contract are really significant, right? Like, could be 10, 20, $30 million or more. Jeff Passan said most, so you assume half, assuming that's a credible report, which I think we'll come back to. But assuming that you have that much deferment, then the Dodgers are still got a lot of room there for the avoiding the competitive balance tax. I think they came in $157 million, however much of an Ohtani's you're adding, up to 237, right? So 43, $80 million. So even if Ohtani's getting 40 or 50, they still have another $30-40 million worth of room to stay under the tax and still add 2 pitchers.
Right.
So that rotation is going to look a lot better before it's all said and done.
Yeah. And I mean, guys like Pepio and Sheehan, I think are, if that's your depth, if those are your guys who are coming in to step in, in case of injuries, that I think that's pretty formidable. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Right now, I guess the moral of the story is the Dodgers are a very, very good team offensively. Maybe not as good as the Braves. I still think there's a conversation to be had there, but the Braves were also a historically good offensive team in 2023. So the Dodgers being a step below that doesn't necessarily mean that the Dodgers could still be pretty good and be a step below the Braves, I guess is what I'm saying. But on the pitching side, there are certainly some questions still to be answered there for the Dodgers. But as you said, we do expect them to make some pretty significant moves in that regard moving forward. I do want to come back to the comment you made about reports and credibility, which is something that has been a major topic of conversation over the last few days in the baseball world. There was a report on Friday that Shohei Ohtani had made his decision and was joining the Toronto Blue Jays. There was also on Saturday, before Shohei made the announcement himself, there was quite a bit of flight tracking going on. A flight that was going that apparently went from Anaheim to Toronto, which admittedly was a very random flight, not like a normal, a thing you'd normally see. It wound up being Robert Herjavec, the guy on Shark Tank, which I think is the best part of the story. But it seems like, a lot of people reported a lot of things over the course of this process. There are reports relating to that flight as well, that it was in fact Ohtani going from Anaheim to Toronto. Not necessarily on that flight that people were tracking, but that was a flight he was actually taking when he was in reality just back in Southern California. A lot of reports floating around and kind of a lack of clarity throughout this process. Yeah,
I think, for me personally, and I think for you as well, I'm not into chasing being the latest, greatest newsbreaker. There's enough people out there doing that.
Yeah.
And the process to get there. All of this information, like Bob Nightingale wrote, and I've already knew basically the gist of that. It's all coming from agents, right? So it's all being manipulated, and the agents dole out, oh, this one gets to break that the move happened. This one gets to break what the contract terms were, and so forth. And they divvy it up. At the end of the day, you're depending on what, a spy in an airport, a spy in an office, an agent utilizing you as his tool. Enough already. I'm totally on board with Bob Nightingale's article. If anybody had a chance to read that, I strongly suggest it. I know a lot of people like to give Bob kind of a lot of crap on Twitter, but I'm going to give him a plug too, because he's a great guy. And, what he wrote about it, and there was a bit of mea culpa in there too, right? Yeah. Because he didn't exclude himself. He said, hey, I do this too. We've got to stop this. So, hopefully this will be somewhat of a, impetus for the industry to clean itself up a little bit. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I mean, even when the Diamondbacks signed Eduardo Rodriguez, there were reports that the Cincinnati Reds were also involved, that it was down to 2 teams. And then very quickly, those reports were retracted. And it was like, okay, no, it's just the Diamondbacks, I guess. And shortly thereafter, the deal was finalized and the Diamondbacks signed him. So yeah, it's interesting, especially as it pertained to Ohtani. There was such a need for information. Like, people just couldn't live without knowing, what conversations were being had and these kinds of things. And there was a lot of criticism of Nez Bolello, Ohtani's agent, as well as Ohtani, for the secrecy that they took throughout this process and wanting to kind of not share as much of that information as would normally have been shared. What's your perspective on that? Do you feel like a guy like Ohtani in this situation does owe it to the media and to the larger Major League Baseball audience to be kind of open about how this process was unfolding?
Nope.
Okay.
I do not. I think that, look, MLB's issues with how entertaining the winter meetings are and all of that,
sure,
that's a completely separate issue. And I do think that Ohtani's ability to basically close off from the media during the season, not make himself available for weeks and months at a time, not cool. That needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But as far as this process, I mean, you're talking about $700 million, right? Are we privy to boardroom discussions for other major corporations making deals that big? No, that's private. It should remain private. And we can find out about it later once it happened.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I know Ken Rosenthal came out and spoke pretty vocally about this, that he feels that Ohtani, being Ohtani, sort of owed it to the media and to just the baseball world at large to be a little bit more open about how things were unfolding here. I can see that side of things, just because, I don't know, it is a personal decision at the end of the day for Shohei Ohtani, right? And we don't necessarily want to be like interfering with people's private lives excessively. But also, this is a very high profile free agent, and I think when you're in Ohtani's shoes, in my opinion, I think you have to recognize that, yes, you have a right to privacy and to a reasonable extent, while at the same time, I don't know, when you're a professional athlete, in my opinion, you're kind of signing up for that.
So let me ask you.
Sure.
What exactly did you want him to reveal that he didn't? I mean, we knew what teams were in on it, right? I mean, we heard early on that the Yankees weren't in on it. We knew the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, the Giants,
sure,
the Angels were teams that were in on it. What were we missing from Ohtani and his camp? Like, what did we need to know, and what should he have been revealing specifically?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I guess we don't know. We don't know what we're missing out on because we never really found it out throughout the process, right? But
what did we know about Eduardo Rodriguez?
Yeah, that's fair. Eduardo Rodriguez was I mean, there was very little information that came out about Eduardo Rodriguez throughout his whole process. But there's also just such a huge difference between Eduardo Rodriguez and Shohei Ohtani in terms of like the demand for information and whatnot.
Well, I'm with Piece of Yoshi.
You're with Piece of Yoshi?
I'm just glad it's over.
Glad it's over.
Let's move on.
Fair enough. Well, hey, it might not be $700 million, but speaking about big chunks of money, One of the best holiday gifts that you can give this Christmas season is the holiday scratchers over from our friends at Arizona Lottery. They make last minute shopping very, very easy. I'm definitely planning to take advantage of this. I am a hardcore procrastinator when it comes to my Christmas shopping, Jack, which I'm sure is an utter shock to you. But yeah, scratchers start at just $1. Top prizes are up to $500,000. Not quite 700 million, but you can do pretty well for yourself there as well. These tickets make the perfect stocking stuffer for those people in your life. Go out and buy your holiday scratchers today. Find a retailer like our friends over at Circle K near you at ArizonaLottery.com. You must be 21 or older to play. Also want to tell you all real quick about our friends over at Wink. They make these lovely seltzers. Wink seltzers are available online for consumers to buy direct to their doorsteps at drinkwink.com. The product has THC and CBD in each can. It comes in 2.5 milligram cans and now 5 milligram cans as well online. 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories. Come in a variety of flavors as well: mango, lime, and black cherry. They taste crisp, clean, and refreshing. There's 0 hangovers, still creating a fun social experience. You can buy them online in 12, 24, and variety packs right now. Of course, use promo code PHNX for an additional 50% off your total order. Well, it is Monday. We're not just going to sit here and pontificate about Shohei Ohtani and how much information we think should have been revealed throughout this entire process. It is Monday, and everyone on the show knows what we do on Monday. Damon, let's go to the mailbag.
Can I just say you didn't do the right intro?
Yeah, I know. But when I host the show, I feel like it has to be different, Damon. I can't just step in here and
every month is Pride Month. Every month is Indigenous
we can do the whole thing. Yeah,
every week is Shark Week. Every day is Earth
Every day is Damon's Day. Whatever. Damon, put up the video. Let's do it. Let's go to the mail.
My mailbox, always something interesting in my mailbox. I try to get to everything in my mailbox, and then once in a while there's a letter that makes me go wow, wow. My mailbox, always something.
All right, here we go. It is Mailbag Monday, and we are here to answer a whole bunch of questions. We have a lot to get to today, and Jack is here to help us get through all of these. So let's go ahead and see what the first question is. This comes from Aaron Hughes. Aaron is a big fan of yours, Jack. He says, excited to see Jack on the show. A great guy. Aaron's question, given we get a DH, who would you like to see as a right-handed hitting outfield acquisition? I will start by saying that I don't know that this is a given that the Diamondbacks get a DH and also have the ability to get a right-handed hitting outfielder. It might be a one or the other situation. But Jack, when you think about right-handed hitting outfielders, who comes to mind for you?
Well, I mean, if they spend a lot of money for a DH, then they're not going to have much left over for a right-handed hitting outfielder. So it's going to be a utility type player. I mean, it could be hate to say it, but a desperate Tommy Pham coming back because he can't get a full-time job. I wouldn't hate to see that.
Yeah.
It could be somebody like Whit Merrifield not getting the market that he hopes for. Could be a Randall Grichuk on a rebound contract that would probably be pretty cheap. So if you're talking about they've already gone and gotten a DH and now who else can you get for right field, could be somebody along those lines.
Sure. I guess if the Diamondbacks don't get a DH and they really focus on getting just an outfielder, some options that have come up, Randy Arozarena, of course, there have been some rumors there. Still seems a little bit far-fetched to me that the Diamondbacks are able to pull that off. We've talked at length about him and how much money he's going to make and the assets it would probably cost to get him already on the show. Lane Thomas is another guy, another name that we've thrown around a lot. Someone who has a cannon of an arm and would fit in pretty nicely in that regard, moving Corbin Carroll over to left field, give the Diamondbacks an arm in the outfield that they don't have, while also being a pretty good hitter. There's 2 more years of control there. Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes over with the Orioles. Bringing back Lourdes Gurriel, I guess, would be maybe a consideration here. What out of all those options or any others?
I'm going to throw one more at you.
Sure.
I always liked Adam Duvall.
Okay.
I think that if you look at his numbers, like if anyone's bothering looking up his RDRS and all that, most of those negative numbers come from time spent in center field.
Sure.
He's at least still, even at this age, a league average defender, maybe even a little better. He's got pop. You know, he can play right field.
Yeah.
I see him as actually a pretty good fit.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's a free agent, yes?
Yes.
So
roster resource projects him to get 1 year, $8 million. You know, I mean, his projection isn't great, 0.3 WAR, but you know, at this point with these guys, anyone that's not projected to get 2 WAR, you just ignore it. And
right,
like, do you think he's going to age out on you or not? He hit okay last year.
Yeah, 247, 21 homers, 58 RBI, played 92 games with the Boston Red Sox. Yeah, I think that also could make some sense. But yeah, it does sort of, we're going to talk more about this later. It does kind of seem like DH is the more likely option, at least as far as a, you know, someone who's not just a utility type like you talked about, and maybe they're focusing on pushing the chips in there. But yeah, we'll see how things pan out.
I think you've touched on it already in your previous shows, but you know, Mike Hazen saying that he's more likely to add via free agency.
Yeah.
In either that DH / right-hand spot or his primary right-hand bat, however he acquires it. You know, he indicated that a couple times. And the reason that that's particularly interesting is because he emphasized also that, hey, there's no free agency during the season.
Sure.
And so you can turn back around and use your prospect capital to trade for a guy at the trade deadline at that point. So, you know, I think that I'm thinking that he's going to end up filling these spots via free agency, and I think it's going to be one of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, even like Lane Thomas, like on paper, that makes sense. But are the Nationals really interested in trading Lane Thomas right now? There's, you know, it takes two to tango, obviously, in all those situations. So free agency definitely seems like the more likely outcome. Can understand why Mike said that. Let's go to the next question. What else we got? Gabriel says, can we compete against the Los Angeles Dodgers for the division? I don't know if people are going to like what we have to say about this, Jack. I'll let you start. What do you think?
Define Ken.
Yeah. Define compete.
I mean, look, it is what it is. I hate to use that phrase. It's so tired, but they've won the division 10 of the last 11 years. The 1 year they didn't, they won 106 games. I mean, you know, they were already, even without Ohtani, projected to be, you know, a little better than the Diamondbacks on paper. They've added Ohtani. They're going to add more pitching. The Diamondbacks have added Eduardo Rodriguez and Suarez. I have the Diamondbacks projected between 82 and 84 wins right now.
Sure.
You know, Dodgers are probably over 87, 88, and they're going to be adding pitching. So anybody that does odds, the odds makers in Vegas, Fangraphs, after they run projections, all of that, I mean, they're all still going to favor the Dodgers. Can the D-backs compete for it? Sure, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Dodgers could have a whole slew of injuries, and everybody on the Diamondbacks stays healthy and outperforms their projections. You can't predict baseball.
Right.
But your starting point is 6 to 8 games behind them.
Yeah. A quote from Mike Hazen stood out to me. This is from his exit interview. So way back at the beginning of the offseason, the beginning of November. He was talking about, you know, just offseason plans. And this was before any of that stuff had happened. Any of, you know, the Suarez deal, the Rodriguez deal. He said, you know, where we're going to stack out on paper versus the Dodgers going into the season, I don't know. My guess is we're still going to be on paper pinned well behind from a projection standpoint, no matter what we do. And yeah, that was just kind of always the reality. I mean, no matter how aggressive the Diamondbacks are this offseason, it's just hard to see how they would possibly close that gap on paper. But like you said, this is baseball. We see crazy things happen. People didn't have the Diamondbacks in the World Series either, and yet that is a thing that happened just about a month ago. So anything can happen, but on paper, yeah, you know, even with the improvements that the D-backs could still make this offseason, there's just no way that gap could possibly be closed on paper.
I mean, I feel pretty good about their ability to compete for the wild card again.
Yeah. Fortunately, that's not what the question was, but
no. But, hey, yes. Positivity.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. They're right. They're right in the thick of that race. I don't think there's any question about their ability to compete for the playoffs. Competing with the Dodgers in the division is a whole other matter. Damon, what do we got next? Cesar says, does the Ohtani signing by the Dodgers start an arms race in the NL West? Do the D-backs become more aggressive and try and pick up Jorge Soler or Randy Arozarena. We also got another question about this from Ryan Page about whether the D-backs would sort of rip open the checkbook now that Ohtani is signed with the Dodgers and, try to react and counter as best they can, as best as you can counter a move like that. What is your feeling on this?
Well, I'm hearing Mike Hazen's voice in my head. And, if we asked him this question, he would just say, that's not going to impact. We have our plan.
Yeah.
We're going to do what we're going to do. We have to be true to our plan, our budget, and everything else that they have to do themselves. I don't think that has one iota of influence. I think they're most likely have anticipated the Dodgers making significant moves like this.
Right.
Ken has come through with a payroll budget. I mean, they're already on the verge of setting a record, depending on where you have them. I have them at 128 million. Nick Pecora had them at 133 million. Their prior franchise payroll record was 131. And so there looks like they're heading to 140 million, maybe even getting to 150.
Yeah.
So they're blowing by their previous franchise payroll record. They're already doing everything that they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, granted, there's been substantial inflation in recent years, so you can't. It's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison like payroll this year versus payroll several years ago. But
sure,
obviously, with COVID and everything, there were some shortfalls there for a time, and a lot of teams around the league have kind of slowly come out of that. So that's certainly a factor there as well. But yeah, I think I'd really just agree on this one. I don't think there's any reactionary. The D-backs are not that shocked by this, frankly. Like the Dodgers signing Shohei Ohtani was not something that the Diamondbacks hadn't accounted for or hadn't thought about entering this offseason. And like you said, I just don't think teams really do that. It seems like, if you're in a front office, you've got your plan, you've got your idea of what's going to make your team the best it can be the next year, and you're going to follow through with that plan no matter what other teams around you do. Let's go to the next one. Bill says, will the D-backs bring back Just Stingers? Of course, Just Stingers is JD Martinez. We've talked about JD Martinez a good amount on this show at this point. We've kind of, already gone through the fit and how it makes some sense. And certainly from JD Martinez's perspective, he's not going to be going back to LA. The Dodgers don't need a DH anymore. So he's on the market and by all accounts would make sense for the Diamondbacks. And this has been reported that there's interest there. I think Bob Nightingale wrote that the Diamondbacks are hopeful about getting JD Martinez, with Justin Turner also in the mix as well. We've heard other names. We've heard Rhys Hoskins' name, Jorge Soler's name thrown around as well. What's your sense of the JD Martinez fit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a fit, right? He's a good hitter. His batted ball metrics were fantastic last year. I mean, there's virtually no difference between 2023 and 2017 in the underlying batted ball metrics.
Derek said he looks at JD's Baseball Savant page before he goes to bed every night, just dreaming of having JD on the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting. But it's funny. I was pretty confident, or I guess optimistic, that he could be a legit possibility.
Yeah.
But some of the buzz that I'm reading and just sensing from this morning, his price tag is going up. And I think that the teams that lost out on Ohtani, there's 2 or 3 of them that are going to bid up the top 2 or 3 DH prospects, including JD. So that could get a little tough. I mean, what if he needs 2 years, $36 million to sign? Then that Diamondbacks aren't going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, MLB trade rumor says 2 years, $40 million. Which to me feels a little on the high end. I think that might be a little over the top. But yeah, 2 and 36 is pretty realistic. And other guys might be in a similar range, like Rhys Hoskins. I don't know if you're getting Rhys Hoskins for 2 years and $20 million or something like that. There's probably going to be a decent price tag there. So the cost is certainly prohibitive to some extent. But given the interest that the Diamondbacks have, I wouldn't be shocked if that was the move that they made. And yeah, it absolutely makes a ton of sense. JD is one of those guys, I will say, that it feels like at some point he's just not going to really be able to hit anymore. And it could just kind of happen whenever. He struck out, I believe, 31.4% of the time last year, which is a big number. I mean, you can still be a productive hitter with that high of a strikeout rate, but not that many guys can do it. And it's very much dependent on you just destroying the baseball, which is what JD Martinez did this last year. But as he continues to age, I don't know, like how long can JD Martinez do that for?
His Wobacon.
Yeah, there you go.
Woba bacon. I love that. There's bacon in metrics.
Yeah, for all of you who think that we stat nerds don't have fun, we're just talking about bacon all the time, right?
Now, you know, you mentioned a 31% K rate.
Yeah.
It was 24% last year, which is shocking that it went up that much in one season.
Right.
Somebody on Twitter had been talking to me and said, well, you know, I'm a little concerned about Soler's strikeout rate. And I went and double checked.
It's like 25, I think.
It was 24 last year.
Yeah.
24 point something. I mean, he actually had a 7% better K rate than Martinez, which was surprised me. So, you know, where is the cliff's edge, right? You always worry about that with guys in your late 30s. You know, one of the other candidates is 3 years older, Justin Turner.
Yeah.
He's 39. So, I mean, the thing about Soler is he's younger, right? He's got a better projection, actually. I think his projection for WRC Plus is 119. You have JD, shockingly, is only projected 106, which I don't understand.
That is interesting.
But that's why Soler's booked to get a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah. I mean, giving JD Martinez 1 year, I think, you know, even if it's a higher dollar value, that's something you could talk yourself into. Giving JD 2 years and counting on this level of production, I mean, it wouldn't be this level of production. Counting on, you know, him to be a productive DH for 2 more seasons is a bit of a gamble. I mean, he's 36 years old, I want to say. Mm-hmm. There's definitely some risk there.
So our good friend Nick Picoro
at
AZ Central, he thinks that the Diamondbacks only have another $7 million left they can spend. Whereas, you know, other people have reported it's as high as 15 to 20 million more to go.
Sure.
So that's the $64 question, right? You know, how much left do they have in the budget?
If it's $7 million, it's not. That's not going to get
any
you
of those guys.
No. I mean, at that point, you could maybe bring back Tommy Pham, I guess.
Let me give you a name.
Sure.
That was given to me on Twitter that by another good friend, James Atwood.
Yeah.
Sorry to plug all my buddies. But
Hey, they're my buddies too. It's okay.
I got to give credit where credit's due, right? I don't want to be like some reporters out there that always forget to give credit.
Yeah. Well,
but he mentioned Tom Murphy as a DH kind of emergency catcher type guy.
Sure.
If they only have $7 million left to spend, bringing in a guy like that who's a lefty killer, he doesn't play a lot, but the last couple of years, I mean, it's like 140. 128, whatever it is, OPS plus, WRC plus. I mean, guy's been 30, 40% above league average hitter each of the last 2 years in a part-time role for the Mariners. And he can play catcher, although he's not very good at it. He doesn't throw anybody out at all.
It gives me Mitch Garver vibes a little bit. A guy who can really hit, but not really bringing you much defensively. I can see the fit there. I mean, he's only been his career hitting stats are not all that great. But over the last 2 seasons, I mean, it's about 200 plate appearances, but he has been, I mean, it's a 146 OPS plus over 200 plate appearances, which is compelling. Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty big split too. I think lefties.
Sure.
He's hit lefties really well. Again, I'm talking about a kind of a lower end, lower tier fill for a right-handed bat that you can put in a DH. Of course, that probably means a lot of Pavin Smith on the other side of it.
Sure. Let's go to the next one. What else we got, Damon? Sean says, do you think the D-backs consider swapping defense for offense by trading Alek Thomas for a right-handed outfielder with pop? It'd be a big move for the D-backs to trade Alek Thomas, no matter what they get. I don't know if I see them trading Alek Thomas, period, this offseason. But Jack, I'll let you go first here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, are you talking about trading Alek Thomas plus something for Randy Arozarena?
Sure.
I mean, I could see something like that. At least you have an impact player coming back. But again, Mike Hazen's words to your question when we were in Nashville echo in my ears. He's very what you had asked, I think, what's the threshold for a hitter in center field? He's so enamored with Thomas's defense, as he should be, that he doesn't need to hit a lot for Mike to hold a very high valuation for him.
Right.
He's got to hit a little bit more than he did the last couple of regular seasons. they're looking at that postseason maybe as a turning point for him. So it's hard to say. I mean, I don't think that they're going to bring in a mediocre fielder that strikes out a lot but hits home runs for Alek Thomas. No,
sure,
they wouldn't do that. Yeah,
it does seem like the Diamondbacks highly value defense, especially in center field, which is a kind of a tricky position to play at Chase Field. The D-backs could, Corbin Carroll is okay in center field, not great, but okay. Jake McCarthy can play center field, not great, but okay. I have a hard time seeing them move on from Thomas unless it gets them someone else who can play center field, frankly. I think they would want to have that assurance defensively. And I don't know who you could trade Alek Thomas for, who is, a notable upgrade offensively, who also, can play. Some people are saying Luis Robert in the chat, which if you could pull that off, then, sure. But I don't think
a 5-WAR player hit 38 home runs last year. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alek Thomas for Luis Robert straight out. Clearly, that's a fair trade. I don't think I see it. To your point, the Diamondbacks clearly have a value on center field defense. You can understand why. And Alek Thomas is still a very young player. He's the kind of player where, if you trade him away, there's a chance that Alek Thomas figures things out, not only against righties to a greater extent, but kind of figures out how to hit lefties and could be a really valuable player if he's able to do that at some point. So, I guess it's possible, but certainly doesn't seem likely. Damon, what do we got next?
I believe next is your other question.
Next is our other question. Yes. This one we couldn't make a graphic for, but we do have one more question for this segment. This is from Matt on Twitter. What is your level of concern with the amount of pitching talent in the prospect pipeline with a couple years left until Gallen and Kelly reach free agency? I'm hoping we have some reinforcements on the way. Level of concern, Jack. Where would you put that?
I would say medium to medium high.
Okay.
If I can plug my partner,
yes,
over
please.
at Inside the
Absolutely.
Diamondbacks. So Michael McDermott, who publishes our top 30 prospects list. I channeled him for this question and talked to him about it this morning. On his list of pitching prospects, he doesn't have any prospects or guys with rookie eligibility, which for a New York minute still includes Slade Ciccone and Bryce Jarvis. They'll lose their rookie eligibility like a couple weeks into the season if they both make the opening day roster.
Sure.
But nobody's got a future value rating over 45. Which on the 2080 scout scale, I mean, you really need a guy that's like a 50 or a 55 to say, okay, we got a guy coming.
Right.
And they don't really have that. I mean, Walston, Yumin Lin, I would say Grayson Hitt has got the potential, but he's coming off Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
He's only a 45 because of that. If he comes back from Tommy John surgery mid-year and he's throwing 94, 95, 96, then he could be a guy. But right now, you got to hope that Brandon Pfaadt translates what he just did over the last month or two of the season and the postseason,
right? And
keeps moving forward, develops his changeup. There really isn't a top starting pitching prospect coming along in the system.
Yeah.
That's a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even Brandon Pfaadt, even though I think, he very much like promising in the postseason, do you project Brandon Pfaadt as a number one starter who could, take the role of a guy like Zach Gallen or even Merrill Kelly? Probably not, right? Probably more of a mid-rotation profile there, maybe a little bit above that, depending on how things work out. One guy that I will say I'm intrigued by is Dylan Ray, a righty that the Diamondbacks took early on in the 2022 draft. His numbers aren't necessarily going to blow you away, but he has a fastball, a slider, and a changeup that all are pretty decent pitches. The curveball seems to be maybe a little bit on the fringier side. And at times his velo has flashed a little bit higher than it's normally been. I think he was averaging around 92, but he's reached 98. If you could get Dylan Ray up into the mid 90s, I know his slider has also played up at times in the low 90s, kind of a tight breaker. I could see his profile kind of elevating and being more of a frontline starter if a lot of things go right. It's certainly not sort of the baseline projection for him, but Yumin Lin, there's an intriguing package there, but you talk about a guy being 5'11" and being 160 pounds. You're just not really used to seeing those guys turn into frontline starters. Dylan Ray doesn't necessarily have any one glaring challenge to me that makes it seem like, he could never be a frontline starter.
I would say, with Ray, Michael's also got him at a 45.
Yeah.
I asked him about that. I said, all his stuff ratings are pretty good,
right?
But there are command issues there.
Sure.
I mean, that's how many times do we say, oh, if this guy ever,
figures
gets
out
command and control and figures that out, he's going to be really good, and most of them don't.
Right.
But Michael's got him inside his top 10, so definitely got to keep an eye on. With Lynn, Lynn has a 60 changeup. He's got
really probably the best changeup in the system.
He's got a 50, 55 slider, right? But the main thing with him is his fastball's a 40. It's a 89, 90 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah.
And, he's only 19, just turned 20, I think, right?
Yeah, believe so.
If he was an inch or two taller and 20 pounds heavier and there was a little bit more upside projection to achieve some higher velocity, perhaps. But it's hard to, like you said, it's hard to project him to be, a frontline starter. If he can hang in there as a 4 or 5, great. Whether he might end up as a reliever. So right now, I would say you probably identify the guy the closest to it is Dylan Ray.
Yeah,
and I kind of got my eye on Hit.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking about Shota Imanaga and his potential fit with the Diamondbacks recently, and kind of similar conversations as with Yu-Min Lin. Imanaga is listed at 5'10", 176, also as a left-handed starter. So yeah, it's like, how much are teams willing to bet on these guys? It's always a fascinating question. The results for Yu-Min Lin have been outstanding, but in the long term, yeah, it's hard to project someone like that as a really good starting pitcher.
Just real quick, over the years, whenever I see a guy racking up strikeouts with the changeup at AA and below,
sure,
I always raise a question mark. Put him up in AAA and see if that changeup plays, because AAA hitters are older. They know what a changeup looks like. That's where you start to see a separation there. If the changeup's really that great, that it makes up for everything else, fine. But young hitters are fooled by changeups.
Sure.
So always keep an alert out when you see a changeup guy racking up strikeouts in the low minors.
Yeah, it's a good call. Well, hey, speaking of predicting the future, as we're trying to do with some of these pitching prospects, you all should download the BetMGM Sportsbook app, where you can place some bets and stake your claim on what you think is going to happen in Monday Night Football or whatnot. Damon is actually going to step in here and stake his claim of what he thinks is going to happen in Monday Night Football. Damon, you have a little parlay action set up for us here?
Yeah, what's up, guys? So make sure you watch the PHNX Bets show,
there you go.
Which we do Monday through Wednesday, Friday, and then a Saturday show typically. And I'll be giving out this pick on the PHNX Bets show. We give out 3 bets every day. And I'll give you guys a little taste. My parlay, BetMGM parlay of the day, parlay of the week, whatever.
Yep.
It is going to be Dolphins minus 6.5 and Packers money line. Combine those guys together, get it at minus 116. I'll be betting that on the BetMGM Sportsbook app.
I just really need Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry to come through for me tonight, Damon, for my fantasy team.
Yes, Jesse is safe from Waffle House, it seems.
It does appear that way. But I think Saul is going to lose pretty much no matter what, so I'm pretty safe. But I do need about 2 more points. I need 2 points between Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry in order to win today, so I feel pretty good about my chances. But yeah, you can place that very wise parlay that Damon just gave you over at the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Sign up for BetMGM, use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10. If that bet loses, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Pretty incredible deal that they have going over there right now if you use our bonus code of PHNX, so be sure to do that. You can check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
Ontario. Thanks,
I'll
Damon.
help you out there.
Thanks, Damon. I appreciate it. We do that it's a thing, Jack. Yeah, Derek started it and I was forced to follow. Which is how most things go on the PHNX D-backs show. Let's be honest here.
Poor facsimile. I can't keep up with him.
Well, hey, if you haven't become a PHNX diehard yet, we absolutely would encourage you to do so. You can go over to our website and do that now. All of our diehard only content, of course, is available only to diehards. All of our written content behind the paywall from myself, from Craig Morgan covering the Coyotes, Gerald Bourguet covering the Suns, and all of our other incredible writers over at gophnx.com. All of that paywall content is available to our diehards. You also get a free t-shirt from the PHNX Locker every month, as well as 20% off all merch from the PHNX Locker, as well as all of our events, which includes our takeovers during the season out at Chase Field. We had a lot of fun with that, doing one of those every month this past season. We hope to do something similar next year as well. So if you're a diehard, you'll get a special deal there as well. So be sure to do that over at gophnx.com if you have not already. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time, which is a fantastic way to buy tickets for not only sporting events, but also concerts as well. It's a lovely personal experience, very aesthetically pleasing. One of the nicer looking apps that you'll find, which is especially important to me. You can snag all of your tickets for all those different events without the stress over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And with that, we'll jump back into the mailbag here. Damon, what else we got? Justin at Justin AZ Trader 7 on Twitter says, are the Diamondbacks considering a lower tier starter like Jack Flaherty? What are the chances that they bring Lourdes Gurriel Jr. back? Kind of two separate questions here. Jack, we'll start at the top. Are the Diamondbacks considering a lower tier starter like Jack Flaherty? It kind of seems to me that Eduardo Rodriguez was kind of the big get from a starting pitching standpoint. I think I would be surprised, frankly, if the Diamondbacks did anything else. I know Nick Picoro wrote about how, that fifth starter is, at least according to Mike Hazen, that fifth starter spot right now comes down to those young starters, and it kind of seems like that's how it's going to play out. So I would be pretty surprised if Jack Flaherty was on the table, but I guess never say never. I guess that might still be possible.
I do seem to remember at one point Mike had said that he didn't rule out bringing in two pitchers.
Yeah.
But I think that was more revolving around if he wasn't able to land one of the upper tier guys that he did end up landing. So by bringing in Rodriguez, I think it rules out them signing another free agent starter that would, be expensive enough to force them to slot them in as number 5.
Yeah, I agree. I would be pretty shocked if there was another starting pitching move. It's probably going to be Tommy Henry, Ryan Nelson, Slade Ciccone, Bryce Jarvis, one of those guys getting that number 5 spot, and that's how we'll roll into the season. Maybe they look at adding someone at the trade deadline. Certainly would never rule that out, but it does feel like that's kind of their last move there. We
could also revive our debate over Ryan Nelson versus Mitch Keller.
Yeah, there you go.
We had an offline debate about, I was like, well, don't give up on Ryan Nelson too quickly.
Sure.
He throws pretty hard. He's got velocity. If he gets command of his off-speed stuff and finds a way to maintain his velocity, there's no reason Mitch Keller, through his first 39 career starts, had a 6 ERA.
Yeah.
And so there's, guys like that, whether it's him or Tommy Henry, Bryce Jarvis, any of these guys. Of course, Slade Ciccone develops a third pitch. He's got a good fastball slider.
Right.
They got 4 guys. Any one of them could possibly step forward. And when you have that many that are on the cusp of being a 5th starter, why would you at this point devote any more resources to signing another pitcher?
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, Mike did say that, in an ideal world, the D-backs would get multiple starters. And I still think that would be ideal just because Ryan Nelson or Tommy Henry or any of those guys wouldn't be in the rotation on day one, they're still going to pitch eventually, right? Like, you're still going to need 6, 7, 8, 9 starters in order to make it through a season. So I still understand why adding another starter, I think probably still a pretty good idea. I don't really expect it to happen. The second part of this question, though, bringing back Lourdes Gurriel Jr., What do you think about that part of things here, Jack?
I was almost taken aback during his pregame interview before Game 5 of the World Series.
Yeah.
It felt like a goodbye tour.
Sure.
I mean, it sounded like he had already made up his mind, like, oh, this was wonderful. Everyone here has been like family. He was already saying his thank you Diamondbacks fans speech before the World Series was over. That's what it felt like sitting there listening to it.
It doesn't exactly bode well for a reunion. Yeah, that's fair.
His family's all in Miami. The teams he's been linked to are all East Coast teams that spring train in Miami. And from the Diamondbacks side, I mean, he was good, but he was also very streaky. And, when you add it all up, is it worth it for them to invest in him for a 3-year deal or 4-year deal?
Yeah.
Which is probably what it's going to take if he can get it. I mean, he's looking for a multi-year deal.
Right. Yeah. 4 years for Lourdes really wouldn't shock me. Maybe 3 years is more likely, but yeah, it's going to be a decent investment. I mean, this isn't Lourdes for 1 year and $5 million, which is, the situation for 2023. The D-backs didn't have to pay him very much. Bringing him back for 14, 15 million, whatever that looks like, is a much more substantial investment. So the odds don't seem to be in the D-backs' favor to make that happen. Damon, what do we got next year? Carson says, do the D-backs start to trade prospects for big names now, knowing that they have 3 top picks next year? It is true. They have 3 top picks next year. They're not exactly high first-round picks, but they do pick at number 29. That's their regular first-round pick. They have the 31st pick because of Corbin Carroll, and then they also have the 35th pick as well in the competitive balance round. So it's a nice haul of draft picks. I don't know if I see that making a huge difference for them in terms of being more comfortable trading prospects. This farm system is, doesn't quite grade out the way that it used to when Corbin Carroll and Alek Thomas and all those guys were still in it. But what is your feeling on this?
I go back again to what Mike said about, holding on to his prospects until the trade deadline. I don't think it's impossible that he'll trade a top level guy, of course. I mean, the Arozarena. I don't want to sit here and say, no, he's not going to trade any of them. And then 24 hours later, I got mud on my face because that's exactly what he did. It wouldn't be the first time. But the odds are that he's going to continue to try to do his via free agency for now and keep his prospects until he really has a better chance during the season to evaluate whether or not moving one will push them over the goal line.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe by all accounts, the Diamondbacks are willing to talk about anyone at this point. I think Mike Hazen made it clear when we were at the winter meetings that, they're open to anything. But at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of value in some of those young players. He talked about how a lot of those top prospects could be in the majors pretty soon. Now they view them not as just prospects, but as young major leaguers. A guy like Jordan Lawler would certainly fit in that category. So, yeah, I don't think them having the 3 picks next year really changes the equation much. There's clearly some willingness to deal from that top of the farm system if the opportunity presents itself, but it doesn't necessarily seem like that's going to happen. It's probably fairly unlikely at this point.
The one thing which I'm sure you guys have already talked about was Mike's comments about Drew Jones essentially being untouchable.
Yeah, we did touch on that the other day.
And so, I started thinking, like, if he breaks out and Christian Robinson really takes a step forward,
sure,
that might at some point, circling back to the whole Alek Thomas thing, give Mike a better opportunity to consider trading Alek if he can plug the holes quickly enough.
Yeah. Damon, let's go to the next one. What else we got? Can the D-backs trade for Pete Crow Armstrong? Interesting. It's a very, very specific question. Jack, how do we feel about Pete Crow Armstrong? Top prospect with the Chicago Cubs.
Why?
Yeah.
He's not a bad prospect at all, but he's left-handed.
Yeah.
Right. And the Diamondbacks need another left-handed outfielder like they need a hole in the head. Interesting. I mean, he showed actually more power than he was projected to have coming out of school. but a higher strikeout rate. Like the whole thing about him was, he had a flat level swing and he was going to hit line drives and he was going to hit for average. And instead, what he's done is he's struck out a lot and hit for 230 ISO. So it's kind of interesting that that's the type of player he's developed into. I just don't see it. I don't see why they would do that.
Yeah.
They don't need another left-handed bat.
And I don't really think the Cubs are especially interested in trading Pico Armstrong at this point. I'm not really sure how that would make sense from their perspective. He's an intriguing prospect for sure, but yeah, I mean, you'd have to give up a lot in order to pry him away from the Cubs, and it doesn't seem like the juice is worth the squeeze for the D-backs there.
Agreed.
Damon, what do we got next? Michael Rokicki, this is a fascinating one. You can only choose one outcome for the 2024 season. Number one, a 300, 400, 500 slash line for Corbin Carroll. Number two, a 2020 season for Alek Thomas. Or number three, Zach Gallen finally winning a Cy Young Award. Jack, what do you got here?
Well, if I can choose only one, I'm going to choose number three because I don't think that the Diamondbacks are going to be, strong contenders without a Cy Young caliber season from Zach Gallen.
Sure.
They can get there with an 850 OPS instead of a 900 OPS from Carroll. They can get there with a 10-10 season from Alek Thomas. But they're not going to get there if Zach Gallen doesn't pitch like a Cy Young candidate.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Zach Gallen is obviously really important to this team, and he didn't pitch especially well down the stretch and even in the playoffs. So getting him back on track and more like the pitcher that we saw in 2022 is certainly going to be an important factor for the D-backs. My answer here, I could go, honestly, either the Gallen direction or I think I would go with Alek Thomas here. A 2020 season from Alek Thomas. Granted, there is some world where Alek Thomas has a 2020 season and maybe like he doesn't improve that much. Like he got to 20 homers, but he only hit 230 or whatever. But in my mind, if Alek Thomas is a 2020 season, it probably means that he took some pretty big steps forward, that maybe he's in there against lefties every day because he's found a way to hit lefties a little bit better. If Alek Thomas breaks out in some way in 2024, that would be an enormous development for the Diamondbacks. In my mind, yes, Zach Gallen, it'd be great if he won a Cy Young Award, but, he finished, 5th in Cy Young voting this year? Mm-hmm. And the D-backs were okay with Zach Gallen finishing 5th, right? And Corbin Carroll getting up to 300, 400, 500. My baseline expectation for him is not even that much lower than that. It's a little bit lower than that, but that's not necessarily a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So I don't see like a huge needle mover there. If Alek Thomas breaks out, that's a huge needle mover for the D-backs in 2024. So that would be my choice there.
I had the same thought when I looked at the 2020. What's the OBP that goes with that?
Right. Yeah, there are some unanswered questions there. That's fair. Even the 20, honestly, 20 stolen bases might be less likely than 20 homers.
Agree.
Because he really doesn't steal. He was efficient in 2023. Was 9 for 10. But even if you go back through his minor league numbers, he never stole more than 15 bases in a season, which is maybe surprising given how fast he is. But yeah, I think him getting to 20 steals would be a sight to behold for sure.
Well, I agree with you on the upside. Like, number two would be an indication he's playing every day.
Yeah.
And so that would be an indication that he's hitting lefties enough to play every day.
Right.
And so, that certainly would be the biggest surprise out of these three possibilities.
To answer piece of Yoshi's question, I voted for Rookie of the Year. I did not vote for Cy Young this year.
Mm-hmm. Who'd you vote for?
I voted for
Outman.
Outman was my number one selection for Rookie of the Year. No, my ballot has already been revealed on this show. The people know what my ballot looked like. Let's go to our next question, Damon. What else we got? Finish off here with a couple of fun ones. Cog says, this one is for all of you. What is your favorite Christmas gift that you have ever gotten? I'll go first here, Jack. This goes back to, this is a bit of an odd answer, but this goes back to like 2005, 2006. It was Christmas Eve, and my family is out at a movie. We're like watching some Christmas movie the night before Christmas, and we get home, and there's this big SUV parked in our driveway, and there are presents stacked from under our tree. There are presents stacked in our backyard, and there is a man actively robbing our house as we are pulling up. It's one of the scariest moments of my childhood. But the humorous part of this is that this man came away with like all of the least valuable presents under our tree. So I got a karaoke machine that year. This is when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was really excited about this karaoke machine.
That's what you wanted when you were 7 or 8.
That's a karaoke machine. At least one of the things. I wasn't exactly on my list. My parents got me a karaoke machine. And this guy who robbed our house got away with like the dog's toys and like all of the crappiest things. But my karaoke machine I still got. So for me, that's one of the most memorable gift that I've probably ever gotten.
For me, I was probably about 8 years old, and so
your house was being robbed too.
No, my stepdad was really into Christmas. I mean,
Okay.
he was like total like Christmas Vacation, Chevy Chase. I mean,
Sure.
the whole house, the whole neighborhood was lit up like crazy, just because of his lights. And he would over decorate the house, and he bought tons of presents. He was great. It was wonderful. But the most fun gift was it came downstairs, and he had a slot car set up for me, and there were Formula One slots. I don't know the size now. I think it was like 124. They weren't the ones that were this big that you took to the outside
Wow.
slot car places, but they were probably about at least 6 inches long, and that was fun because he had the whole living room and hallway all dominated by the track. Eventually, we moved it down to our rather sizable basement, and all my friends came over like for the next 6 months before our attention spans went elsewhere. They all came over. We had races and we kept track. We had like a racing league and all of that stuff. Of course, we had to geek out while we did it. But that was fun. That was one of the most fun gifts that I ever got.
There you go. Very cool. Well, Karen has a bit of a follow-up to this question as well. Our final mailbag question for this show. To counter Cogs, what is the favorite gift that you have ever given to someone else? Mine, of course, Jack, is merch from the PHNX locker because it just people, I just absolutely love it. And for me, it's especially, it's like the easiest way to like knock out, a whole bunch of people on my list because I just, I know there's going to be something from the PHNX locker that will satisfy them. What comes to mind for you here?
Well, it's not one particular gift, and this is really sappy. Sorry, guys, but I have to do it. I've been married for 40 years.
Here we go.
And my wife's a bit of like, she's from Taiwan, and she didn't grow up celebrating Christmas.
Sure.
And so like she'll act like Scrooge or the Grinch, during the lead up to Christmas. But when we're actually opening presents, she gets really excited. So we always tease her about it. And it just, some years she's so happy with the gift that she gets and seeing her face light up. And last year I gave her a new iPad, and she had no idea it was coming.
Wow.
So, she opens up this Apple box. Oh my God, just seeing the expression on her face and the happiness on her face. Year after year, no matter what I give her, she reacts like that. So it's so funny that Scrooge is always the happiest whatever present she gets.
Well, if she was that happy for an iPad, Jack, imagine how she would react to merch from the PHNX locker.
For sure.
I can't even imagine what that would look like.
I'll make sure I hook her up.
Yeah, there we go. Absolutely. Well, that finishes up our mailbag here for this Mailbag Monday edition. I want to tell you all about our friends over at Shady Rays, which, speaking of Christmas gifts, this would make a very, very fine one or for someone special in your life. Shady Rays makes gear built to last with premium polarized shades. These are the sunglasses that we all wear both outside the office and inside the office on occasion, which still confuses me whenever I see that. We absolutely love our friends over at Shady Rays. They, of course, are well known for their lost and broken replacements policy, where if you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they tell us that they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. They have your back long after you purchase. Derek, of course, has taken advantage of this. He took advantage of this very shortly after he purchased his Shady Rays and lost them somehow, because that's what Derek does. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. even bigger gift that you could give someone in your life is new flooring over from our friends at Empire Today. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. Sometimes in this world, subtraction can really be addition when it comes to shopping for floors. There's just like way too many options in front of you. So they're good at picking out exactly what would be the best fit for you and making sure you know about it. You can schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $300 off discount when they use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. Well, Jack, thanks for hopping on today. We appreciate it.
Your crew here is making me laugh with all the comments about your childhood trauma.
Yeah. I don't think I've told Derek that story, and he probably will kind of freak out when he hears it for the first time.
That's like my worst nightmare, man.
It was an intense moment.
How did it end? Can you like you came up on him robbing the house, so how did he get out of there?
Yeah, well, obviously 7-year-old me stormed into the house and went in there and checked out the scene and told him to get the heck out of there. No, that did not happen.
Guy,
I was in our family minivan, utterly terrified, and I want to say my parents called the cops, like as you do, of course. And then he left shortly thereafter. He like came out the back gate of our house and abandoned whatever gifts he was about to take. And he very quickly zipped out of there in this big SUV. He like backed up and then he like drove away in a way where we couldn't get his license plate, which was unfortunate.
So he was a pro's pro.
He was a pro's pro. But yeah, we went, my parents very bravely went inside to see what had happened, and he had smashed one of the windows in our house. There were like blood droplets everywhere, which made it very easy to identify him after the fact. But yeah, he broke into the office actually. So he walks by like our computer and all of the big time tech equipment and goes to our Christmas tree and picks out like I said earlier, like
doggy play toys.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of the toys for our dog and whatnot. So it was a happy ending. When
he might not have been really a pro's pro.
Flashes of Home Alone going through my head.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Sure wasn't Marv.
Yeah, it was honestly one of the crazier moments of my childhood. Fortunately, I think that was the only time I was ever robbed growing up. I hope you don't have extensive stories that are similar, Jack.
No trauma from the holidays.
No, your part of Chandler is a little bit, I don't know. My parents live in a very reasonably nice neighborhood, but I guess this particular Christmas Eve something was awry. Anyway, well, thank you all so much for being here with us on this Mailbag Monday edition of the PHNX D-backs show. Of course, you can give me a follow on Twitter. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Give Jack a follow on Twitter as well. He is at ShoeWizard59.
Correct.
Nailed it. Got it. Damon, of course, you can follow on Twitter at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's Dogs. Bark, bark. It's another inside thing, Jack. I apologize. Derek would have been utterly mortified if I had gone here and not barked after saying that we're Damon's Dogs. So it's a firm requirement on the show. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter as well at PHNX_D-backs. But of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Well, thank you all again so much for being with us here today. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you don't get robbed on Christmas Eve.
We all silly like the mayor.